Oh, it's so good to be back. Welcome to this week's episode. So excited to have you guys back with us. If you haven't been tuning in up until this point, you can go back in time and learn all the things. Basically, we're here to teach all the 48 principles of acquiring Torah wisdom, which I'm super excited about. They come from Pirkei Avot, right?
Yes.
I'll tell you what, if you're Jewish, if you're not, it doesn't really matter. These are super relatable, universal nuggets of wisdom, bite-sized, brought to you from our studio here in Los Angeles. This week's episode is all about the value of having an internship, of really being present in your learning. And I'm excited because I know for me, in my formative, educational experiences, especially in college, I had several internships that completely changed the trajectory of my career.
This week we're talking about Schumers Common, which is ministering to sages. And I think that this is different than just an internship where you're just taking a job. Schumers Common, connecting to sages, is that when we're learning from people around us or learning from people who are a professor. So there's one type of learning, which is gaining the knowledge, which is the subject matter, deep understanding, learning, and discussion. But then there's a deeper level, which is that the person or the subject matter that we're being taught, is this person a practitioner of it? And can we learn from how they apply the knowledge into the real world? So when it comes to Torah sages, are they taking the knowledge that they're teaching and actually applying it in the real world? And by just socializing next to these sages, by being with them, not during learning, but just by hanging out with them, we can have tremendous lessons. One of the students of the Maggid of Mezrich, one of the greatest Hasidic rabbis, Reb Leib Sarah, was highly regarded also by the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. They'd say about Reb Leib Sarah that when he would go to the Maggid, he would go to his teacher. He would go to his teacher not just to learn wisdom. He would say that I did not go to the Maggid to learn Torah. I went to the Maggid to see how he laces his shoelaces. And, it's an analogy. It's not may not be specifically his shoelaces, but how does he sort of synthesize the spiritual, logical, and meaningful person who he is and bring that into action?
When I first learned that was huge for me. He didn't go just to learn, because my approach in relationship to gaining wisdom from a teacher is that you're learning things. It's not about their life. That's irrelevant. That's actually not true. In fact, to have that sort of standard set is so important. I think about my experiences, even over the past few months when I was in Israel, filming the documentaries. Yes, I got to sit one-on-one and learn, and then I would go and have a meal at my teacher's home. And to just see his interaction with his wife, with his children, what his daily schedule is like, inquiring as to his, what are some of your tips, your best practices for self-care? What are the things that you're doing around work? How do you balance this? What about sleep? What about, it's really, that's some of the most fascinating, critical life skills that I learned. So I can really appreciate this.
And I think that this has huge application for someone who's in an internship or someone who's starting a job. We can learn from a person's actions. We can learn from what's the culture of the company? How do people interact? Do people respect each other? Maybe I have personal experiences from outside this particular company culture that may help find solutions to things that they would have never known.
It's absolutely true. And I would also say that, let's say you see something that you don't necessarily like, you can also learn what you don't want to be like and what you don't want to bring into your home. That doesn't mean that that person is wrong. And, there's, I always say, there's bad eggs in every bunch. But at the same time, there's differences in best practices. There's differences in routines and self-care and needs. So if you see something that your teacher or at an internship that you don't really like, you're like, you know what, I don't like this work-life balance that's happening in the workplace. That doesn't mean you have to take it. You can actually learn what isn't working for you as well from these experiences. Not just what I can gain, but what I can gain in terms of what I don't want to integrate.
Right. And I think that there's that two-part. There's the inverse of what I don't want to learn and also the inverse of what I do want to learn. And I think that highly successful people have developed, there's consistency in many of their habits and how they apply things and how they do things that we can learn from to help us achieve and be more successful. So let's just think about a couple of them. One, having a morning routine. In my house, morning is chaos. I have 6 kids, thank God. They're all running around. Each one's trying to get their lunch. Oh, where's my homework? Where's my shoes? But having morning routines can save a lot of time, a lot of heartache, and even professionally, Having morning routine. What are the things that we do? Do we have time to pray? Do we have time to meditate? Do we have time to take things into context? Do we spend 5 minutes and 5 minutes only deleting unnecessary emails and prioritizing what I'm going to do throughout the rest of the day? And that's sort of another tip. Plan strategically, prioritize what's important, what's not important, what can I do later, what can I do right now. Focus on, from a business standpoint, focus on things that will actually generate revenue. But revenue, I'd like to reframe that. It's not just revenue from a monetary standpoint. Revenue could be, what will I gain from this? What are the end results of this action? So will this activity that I'm doing today have the result that my child will better understand a certain value? Will it have a result that in work I will get over a certain milestone so that I can achieve new things?
Right. Will it put me into a space of joy, which we talked about in the previous episode, that will put me into an abundance mindset, which will allow for the rest of my day to flow? All of that takes really knowing yourself too and checking in with what that is.
That's amazing, because I think that so often we're like, we have so much to do, and we're prioritizing all these things, but sometimes prioritizing the things that will enable you to achieve more, the meditation, the exercise, the positive affirmations. Those things are really important, that we may think that in the larger scheme of things, they may not be that important, but in reality, they are important steps to achieve those important things.
Right.
Finding your zone, in a sense, there are certain places that we're thinkers, certain places that bring us happiness, certain places that bring us peace. So maybe it's getting out of the office and going to a library. Maybe it's getting to the office and going for a hike. Knowing the self, knowing yourself and your team's self, so that you can change things up in a way that will help when you're hitting those barriers.
Yeah, people say that a lot, and I feel like many entrepreneurs that are still growing in their entrepreneurship don't really believe that. It's like, now I'll work from my office. I'm like, no, take yourself to a coffee shop. Or for me, it's in my childhood home. Like, I'll go back to my mom's house. I'll save a lot of my writing, ideating, a lot of meditating on things for my visit to my mom, so that when I sit in my home in that space, a lot of creativity flows, because I'm removed from the pressures of my normal working environment. So there's a lot. Some people, that's nature. For my sister, she's a nature gal through and through. I can't always get my best stuff done in nature, but everyone's got their thing. So find yours.
Right. Persistence, consistency, doing things consistent, doing things like we talked in the past. Taking those two tasks and doing it every single day will cumulatively achieve the goal.
It's amazing. I had that with prayer. Prayer for me is really tough. I would pray once and be like, I did it this week. And I had some of my mentors say, even if you pray, you do the whole half an hour, kind of really sit with your morning, if you just did 10 minutes more consistently, as opposed to this one big download during the week. And that was really interesting to me, that I have this very binary do or die. If I don't do it completely, then I might as well just not do it at all. And I found that was carrying through into how I work out. If I'm not going to get a good workout in, I won't work out at all.
And I think it's also, prioritizing which are the hardest tasks, which are the easiest tasks. And so having that synthesis and prioritizing, when are you learning, and when are you growing, and when are you achieving, and when are you exercising or taking care of your health, each thing has its priority, its time. And I think that the way to achieve that is through being flexible.
Wonderful. Really important. And that again goes back to knowing yourself. There's this theory about the different time zones, and they call it the ones like a bear and a wolf. You're a lion or whatever, depending on when you like to wake up. I am not a night owl, but I do sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with bursts of insight, and I'll write it down. So I have a little notepad by my bed, whether it's a dream or I get an idea or something, and I'll jot it down and I'll revisit in the morning when I'm usually more efficient.
That idea of the lion, the owl, is actually similar to a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says that you should run like a deer, you should be strong like a lion, and learning from all aspects that nature can teach us, whether it's the natural tendencies of a lion, of a deer, and taking those aspects, distilling them into one's life, into one's practice, can be a huge way to help a person achieve these different tasks.
It's really interesting. Wow.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much. This was a great discussion.
Thank you. I learned a lot. I'm excited. I'm ready to go.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for having this conversation. And what are your tips? What are your habits to help you be successful?
I want to know. See you guys next week.
Be well.
Bye.